The pastor smiled at the two of them, his own voice thick with emotion. You may now kiss your bride. Neither of them waited. The kiss landed like a promise that had been waiting an entire year to be kept. Cheers exploded across the vineyard. Camera flashes lit the December sky. Snow drifted around them like heaven itself had decided to celebrate. Joo-Won slipped one arm around Mee-Mee's waist and lifted her effortlessly off the ground. She laughed into the kiss, wrapping both arms around his neck, completely forgetting that several thousand people, including half the internet, were watching. Somewhere among the groomsmen, Dae Hyun finally threw both hands into the air. Finally! Tae Kim leaned over without missing a beat. Shut up! The crowd laughed. When Joo-Won finally set her back on her feet, neither of them moved very far apart. Mee-Mee looked up at him with tears shining in her eyes. I love you, my Juju. His smile softened instantly. I love you more. He leaned close enough that only she could hear. Hello, Mrs. Park. Her entire face lit up. Hello, hubby. The audience giggled with admiration. As they turned toward the aisle exit, Ingrid stepped forward like she'd been waiting her entire life for this exact logistical moment. Tradition time, she said quickly. A decorated broom was placed at their feet, white florals, gold ribbon, winter greenery woven through it. Joo-Won grinned. You ready? She tightened her grip on his hand, born ready. On Ingrid's count, they stepped back together and jumped. The vineyard exploded again. More cheering, applause, laughter, pure release. When they landed, still laughing, still breathless, still not quite believing it, Mee-Mee leaned into him. Now we can really go celebrate. Joo-Won kissed her temple. Good, I've been waiting all day for that part. Welcome back to Christmas in Old Towne Love Stories, our joyful, playful, romantic universe where we still believe in the power of not just falling in love but staying there. Speaking of which, it's time for the reception. It was a full celebration for the guests, and even further outside, where packed fans watched every moment unfold on massive screens set up across the vineyard. It all played out like a dream someone had spent months over planning and still couldn't quite believe had actually come true. The parents, the bridal party and the families took their photos first, laughter echoing through the vineyard. Then the new Mr. and Mrs. Park stepped away for their own portraits. Meanwhile, the vibes inside in the outdoor pavilion were R&B classics, smooth jazz, and acoustic K-pop covers. During the cocktail hour, guests enjoyed signature drinks and delighted in fusion flavors. Mee-Mee's cousins Dee and Alon's absolutely destroyed the bulgogi sliders. Dee said, "These are the business." One of Joo-Won's cousins laughed with a mouthful of lobster mac and cheese. So are the soul food bites. Never had anything like this. They all nodded in agreement for different reasons. After what felt like 200 relatives asking for one more picture, Ingrid appeared, tablet in hand, completely serious. The bride and groom will follow me immediately. Joo-Won blinked. Are we in trouble? She looked offended. You are 3 minutes behind schedule. Mee-Mee burst into laughter. She's always doing the most. Without another word, Ingrid escorted them through a quiet hallway inside the vineyard and opened a small set of French doors overlooking the snow-covered vines. Ingrid nodded once. This is for the fans. Say hello to them live and then maybe a little alone time. You have 5 minutes. She looked directly at Joo-Won, no more. The door closed. Silence. Real silence. For what felt like the first time all day, Mee-Mee slowly exhaled. We escaped. Joo-Won smiled. Barely. She slipped off her heels with a dramatic sigh. Oh, thank you, Jesus, he laughed. I've never heard anyone worship over shoes. You've never worn these shoes. He walked toward her without saying a word. He gently rubbed one of her feet. Mee-Mee's eyes fluttered closed. Oh, he said. Don't stop, she whispered. I wasn't planning to. She looked down at him, smiling, you know. What? I married a very dangerous man. His eyebrow lifted. Dangerous? Yes, sir. You sing, you cook, you rub feet. You look like my very own James Bond in that Tom Ford. He looked genuinely confused. What's the problem? She leaned down and kissed his forehead. The problem is that you're making every other hubby in this room look bad. He laughed. I can live with that. She looked around the tiny room. It finally feels real. He stood, walked behind her, wrapped both arms gently around her waist, rested his chin against her shoulder. It's real. She looked down at the rings on their hands. We're really married. Yes, we are. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. Then, Joo-Won quietly picked up the cake knife. I believe, Mrs. Park, we have cake to cut. She looked over her shoulder. There you go again. What? You keep calling me that. I know, she pursed her lips. You know exactly what you're doing. I absolutely do. She laughed so hard she nearly snorted. I love you. I noticed. She clicked the live button on the phone. The viewer count climbed almost faster than they could read it. 1,000. 10,000. 20,000. And still rising, she waved to the camera. Joo-Won made his fingers in the shape of a heart. Immediately, there was a flood of hearts, fire emojis, and congrats on the screen. They cut the tiny cake together, fed one another. Mee-Mee intentionally dabbed the smallest bit of buttercream onto the corner of his mouth. He narrowed his eyes. Mee-Mee said, "What?" "Nothing," he said. She tried to walk away. He caught her wrist. "Mee-Mee." "What?" "You missed a spot." "Where?" He waited. Then he clicked off the live and looked at her. She finally realized what he meant, smiled, slowly leaned in, and kissed the frosting from his lips. When she pulled back, neither of them moved, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. Joo-Won smiled. "If we don't leave this room right now, I cannot be responsible." She laughed before he could finish. He groaned dramatically, "But you know that Ingrid would find us." Almost on cue, there was a polite knock, 3 precise taps. Ingrid. "The 5 minutes have concluded." Neither of them answered. Another knock, slightly firmer this time. "Mr. and Mrs. Park." Mee-Mee buried her face against Joo-Won's shoulder, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "I told you." Joo-Won sighed toward the ceiling. "She's scary." Ingrid spoke through the door without missing a beat. "I heard that." And then Joo-Won and Mee-Mee giggled like school kids getting caught playing hooky. Now that the photos were finally finished and they'd given love to the digital fans, Mee-Mee glanced at her gown. Without missing a beat, she slipped off the detachable lace sleeves from her redesigned dress. "It's time to party," she announced. The bridal party entered the pavilion first, laughing, dancing, and already out of formation. They were followed by the couple of the night. Joo-Won and Mee-Mee's first dance left not a dry eye in the house. Even the loudest guests went quiet for a moment, like they'd all agreed to witness something they didn't want to interrupt. Then the room broke open again, and the space quickly evolved into turn-up time, because after all, this was Joo-Won and Mee-Mee, who were no strangers to dancing on each other, especially in front of epic audiences. Seo-Jun, usually precise, found himself unexpectedly pulled into chaos when Adrienne, Mee-Mee's cousin, grabbed his hand and dragged him into a Cupid shuffle. "You good, K-pop?" she teased. He adjusted his posture. "I'm always good." But he was smiling now and more than good. Across the floor, Joo-Won watched and laughed. "K-pop, isn't that what you used to call me?" Mee-Mee kissed his cheek. "Now you're my Juju." And just like that, the entire room felt less like guests at a wedding and more like participants in a story they'd all somehow been invited into. Near the edge of the pavilion, Jenny leaned toward Rosie. "Girl." "I know it was Katrina." Rosie didn't even hesitate. "Of course it was." Jenny smiled. "Look at God, she tried to ruin everything and accidentally upgraded the whole wedding." Rosie laughed. "Couture karma." Nearby, Minkyu swayed with his wife, Bora, while their 3-year-old daughter laid peacefully against her shoulder. Bora lowered her voice. "Those leaks had Katrina written all over them." Minkyu smiled. "You can't block what God already blessed." Bora nodded. She knew Katrina better than most. They'd spent years together in the same K-pop girl group. "She was always obsessed with Joo-Won," Bora admitted. Just then, Jenny walked past, caught the last sentence, and didn't miss a beat. "If I see her," she said matter-of-factly, "it's on sight." Bora's eyes went wide. Minkyu laughed so hard he nearly doubled over. "That's Jenny," he explained. "Mee-Mee's best friend since childhood, and her business partner." Bora grinned. "She's spicy." Dancing beside them, Tae Kim overheard the exchange and twirled Maeve across the floor. "They don't play in Petersburg." Little Yoon, still proudly wearing his ring-bearer tuxedo, immediately tried to copy his parents' dance moves, earning another round of laughter. And just like that, the gossip softened. Not forgotten, just no longer important, just irrelevant. If anyone had asked years earlier how this story would end, no one would have guessed this. Vineyard full of people who had once been strangers, now family, dancing beneath winter lights while the newlyweds watched with grateful hearts. For one perfect evening, the headlines didn't matter. The scandals didn't matter. Only love did. One by one, more filled the dance floor. Brianna and Grant were next, easy, familiar, like they'd always been dancing. Mel and Soren followed, playful, slightly too much PDA for a public celebration. At the edge of the crowd, Rosie hesitated. Askel didn't. He simply offered his hand, and she took it. Across the room, Edward saw it, and in a moment that didn't need words, he moved, fast, deliberate. He tapped Askel on the shoulder. Dina and Min-jae watched from across the floor. Dina whispered to him in Korean, "It's about time." Min-jae, who was always ready for the smoke, smiled. "Yes, it is." Edward said, "May I cut in?" A pause. Then Askel stepped back, no scene, no protest, just understanding for now. But he had been quietly watching her from a distance. He liked Rosie, and soon she would know how much. Edward took Rosie's hand. She said, "You haven't paid attention to me all day, and now your timing is off." Edward shook his head as he placed his hands on the small of her back. "I'm right on time." Rosie smiled, barely. From a distance, Prince Soren also watched and smiled. "My assistant is finally catching up to his life." Mel didn't look away, or finally deciding he wants one. Chatting with Dina and Min-jae, who, by the way, conducted business the way most people breathed, was his longtime friend Dylan. Min-jae motioned Grant over. "Grant, meet Dylan." Dylan extended a hand, pleasure. "Likewise," Grant said. Min-jae got right to the point. "Dylan's buying racehorses in Virginia and needs a place to stable them." Grant nodded immediately. "Well, you came to the right wedding." Everyone laughed. Dylan certainly looked the part, tall, tattooed, sun-browned. Dressed in purple label Ralph Lauren with polished cowboy boots and a wide-brimmed hat that somehow looked perfectly at home beside designer tuxedos. The kind of handsome that seemed more comfortable on horseback than on a red carpet. He'd invested heavily in the label that Pt5 was on years before, which was exactly why he'd made the guest list, completely unaware that nearly every single woman within eyesight had noticed him. Truth be told, he was far more interested in horse bloodlines than pickup lines. Across the room, however, Dae Hyun was operating under an entirely different business model. He casually strolled past the line of single women gathering for the bouquet toss, pretending not to count. He counted anyway. Jenny followed his gaze, then looked toward Dylan, then Seo-Jun, then Joo-Won's 3 handsome cousins who had flown in from Korea. She blinked. "Dang!" Mel looked over. "What?" Jenny slowly swept her eyes across the room again. "Is everybody fine?" Mel laughed. "Everyone?" She slipped an arm around Prince Soren, smiling proudly. "Especially my husband." Jenny muttered under her breath, "Girl." Then she looked at the guests in the room. "You ain't never lied." Soren, who heard her, busted out laughing. Mel grinned and headed back toward Ingrid, who was already organizing the next event with military precision. Without looking up from her tablet, Ingrid announced, "It's time for the bouquet toss." Every single woman moved toward the dance floor. Dae Hyun watched them like a football coach studying game film. He quietly straightened his cuff, smoothed his jacket, and checked his reflection in the champagne bucket. Then said completely deadpan, "Showtime." Jisun walked over, "Behave." Dae Hyun pointed at himself. "Who me?" "But Jisun, this is research." She folded her arms, while he put both hands behind his back like a schoolboy, grinning from ear to ear. Mee-Mee was in the center of the floor. She looked at Joo-Won. He winked at her. She smiled, then tossed the bouquet back as far as she could. And much like a fight over deals on Black Friday, death match for the flowers ensued. Jenny emerged the victor, hair slipping out of her French roll. Mee-Mee laughed. Then Ingrid announced it was time for the garter toss. Joo-Won stood beside Ingrid, and without waiting, he took the microphone. "I have something special prepared." Phones immediately came out. Fans outside began screaming because they recognized what was happening. Bruno sighed, getting ready to protect the new married couple. "Here we go." Joo-Won said to the audience, "I've never been the biggest talker." The room erupted in laughter. "As many of you know, I'm more of a doer." Applause thundered through the pavilion. A guest shouted, "I don't talk much, but my eyes say go." Joo-Won laughed, shaking his head. "Exactly." It was a lyric from the song, "Pulled You In," a tune Joo-Won surprised Mee-Mee with during his New Year's Eve concert about a year ago. Then I pulled you in, no need to pretend. One step more and the night won't end. You want, stay right. You want, stay tonight. I pulled you in. Joo-Won's expression softened. He looked only at Mee-Mee. "I wrote something else." Silence fell across the room. Pt5 moved instinctively, like they'd been waiting for this harmonizing moment all night. A beat dropped, and the entire energy of the room changed. This wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was a performance. Joo-Won stepped forward, but he didn't look at the crowd, not once. He was singing, and every note was for her. Every step was directed toward her chair in the center of the floor. Mee-Mee was already laughing, already blushing, already completely undone. And then the real choreography began. He danced in front of her while Pt5 danced behind him. Slow, intentional, playful. Dangerous in the way only intimacy can be when it's allowed to be seen. He knelt. She tilted her head and teased him. "My baby is doing everything but taking this garter off." He laughed. "Patience is a virtue." The room lost control. With one move, he moved her gown to reveal a long leg. Paused. Looked at her. She leaned forward slightly, taunting, "Finish it." That was all. The moment shifted. Not public anymore. Private, even in front of everyone. He smiled at her in a way that she had never seen before, and then his fingers slowly walked up her leg. He lightly kissed just above the garter, and suddenly Mee-Mee, once very bold, was now very quiet. Church mouse quiet.
Baby, lace me a smile. All eyes on you tonight. Your hand in mine, my heart beat loud. You glow in that white dress light. I see that ribbon on your thigh, wrapped up like a secret prize. The room goes still when you look down, and I can't help but step in closer. Don't be shy, let them all watch us now. You blush and I bite my lip. Girl, we make this crowd go wild. Let me take it off. Let me take it off. Slow, nice and soft. Take it off. Let me take it off.
With one smooth motion, the garter disappeared. A heartbeat later, Joo-Won stood. The lace garter dangled playfully between his teeth for exactly 3 seconds. No one in the pavilion knew how to react. Mee-Mee stared at him for one stunned second before laughing so hard she nearly fell out of the chair. "Sir," she exhaled, red from it all, "you're showing off." Because he absolutely was. The room exploded. Mee-Mee immediately pulled Joo-Won back down and passionately kissed him. Mrs. Park covered her eyes. Ingrid's didn't close at all. In fact, they were all the way open. Her grip tightened on the tablet until it nearly slipped from her hands. Under her breath, she whispered, "I just know he's going to talk her through it." Jisun sighed, "Get it together." Then complete chaos, laughter, screams, shock. Joy, someone shouted, "Get a room." Dae Hyun raised both hands, "I support this." Then he turned to Tae Kim, "I guess it's true. Abstinent people really are the freakiest." Tae said, "Shut it." But Maeve didn't miss a beat, smiling wickedly at her husband, who could not help but laugh. Ingrid, for the first time all day, stopped functioning entirely. Watching her bias wrecker Joo-Won with the delicate fabric in his mouth made her short-circuit. Bruno caught her before she fully collapsed. She blinked. "I need water." He laughed. "I got you." Jisun didn't even look surprised anymore. "I told her," she muttered. "Dirty socks." The room dissolved into laughter again. Later, the energy softened. The music shifted once more. Mee-Mee and Joo-Won returned wearing traditional hanboks. The room quieted in a different way now. It was time for the Pt5, a traditional Korean wedding ceremony where newlyweds honor their parents and receive blessings for their marriage. Joo-Won and Mee-Mee took a ceremonial bow before both sets of parents. Mrs. Park and even Mrs. Thomas were excited about the most playful part of the ceremony, where the parents tossed chestnuts and Korean red dates, called jujubes, toward the newlyweds. Tradition said the number caught would predict how many children they would have. Mrs. Park smiled knowingly. "I'm thinking too." Mrs. Thomas wasn't convinced. "Oh no, it'll be 5 at least." Mee-Mee's head snapped around. "5? Out of me." Joo-Won cried with laughter. Toasts turned into cinnamon cake. The cinnamon cake turned into laughter and dancing that didn't follow any schedule anymore. Emotional speeches blurred into music, movement, and the kind of joy that made time feel optional. And slowly, the night began to soften at the edges. The final guests lingered a little longer, unwilling to let go of something that felt like it belonged to all of them now. Jisun noticed her assistant standing alone near the service entrance. She walked over. Neither woman spoke for a moment. Finally, Jisun said, "You've been distracted for weeks." Silence. The assistant lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry." Jisun already knew. "Was it Katrina?" The assistant nodded once. "Tears. She threatened me." Another pause. She had photos from before my surgeries, said she'd destroy me. Jisun looked at her for a long moment, then asked one question, did you ever intend to hurt Joo-Won? The assistant shook her head immediately. Never, I was scared. And Jisun nodded. Fear explains your behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. The assistant cried harder. Jisun continued. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. She then exhaled. You'll submit your resignation tomorrow. The assistant nodded. Yes, ma'am. Then Jisun surprised her. After 6 months, if you've done the work to become someone worthy of trust again, call me. Everyone deserves grace. The assistant looked up, confused but hopeful. Jisun simply walked away. Much later at a hotel suite in LA, Katrina was glued to every screen at her disposal. The TV replayed highlights from the wedding. The crowd, the concert, the vows, the handbok, the broom jump, the kiss, even the spicy Garter song. Oh gosh, that Garter song, she muted it. Opened Instagram, every headline read, Wedding of the Year. Not one mentioned her. She searched her own name. Nothing. Then her phone buzzed. Her former manager. She answered simply with, I heard. Silence. Then her manager sighed, they're investigating the leak. Another silence. If they trace it back to you, she didn't finish. She didn't need to. Click, she hung up. Katrina slowly lowered the phone. Honestly, she looked tired, not even angry, and at this point not jealous, just completely alone. Back at the reception on the outside, fans still celebrated along the vineyard fences. No longer strangers watching a wedding, but part of a shared moment they'd helped carry all the way to its ending. And for the first time all day nothing was happening, just the afterglow. The slow burn officially had permission to begin. Prince Soren walked up to the new Mr. and Mrs. Park with Mel on his arm. Get out of here, you love birds, Mel said. We got this. Soren smiled. The jet is waiting. Bruno popped up. I'm waiting too. Laughter broke again. Mee-Mee grabbed Joo-Won's wrist. You don't have to tell me twice, on God, and just like that they left. On the jet, the world finally went quiet. Mee-Mee leaned into him. He squeezed her hand once. Simple, unspoken, enough. And when he kissed her forehead and fell asleep, there was nothing left to perform, only peace. When they arrived to the Maldives, the bungalow door clicked shut, and for a moment neither of them moved. For the first time in months, there were no managers, no bodyguards, no wedding planner, no fans, no photographers, no one, just Joo-Won and Mee-Mee, finally alone. Mee-Mee slowly slipped off one heel. It landed somewhere behind her. Then the other followed. Joo-Won watched as she looked down at her shoes with a dramatic sigh, because after everything they had been through, the dress, the headlines, the chaos, the wedding that somehow became the biggest event in the world, her feet had officially reached their limit. I think my feet have officially resigned, she joked. Joo-Won laughed. I'll accept their resignation. She looked up at him, a small smile forming. We're married. He smiled back. We are. For a moment they simply stood there, taking it in. The dream they had fought for was finally real. Then Mee-Mee tilted her head. Now what? Joo-Won grinned, because there was one question he had secretly been waiting months to answer. I've actually been looking forward to answering that question. And Mee-Mee burst into laughter. Of course, that was when his phone rang. Just as Joo-Won started walking toward his wife, the moment was interrupted. They both stopped. He looked down at the screen. Dae Hyun. Mee-Mee immediately started laughing. Oh no. Joo-Won answered, hello. Dae Hyun didn't even bother saying hello. What you doing? Joo-Won looked at his wife, then out toward the ocean, and with perfect timing he replied, you should know what I'm doing. What are you doing? Dae Hyun looked around. He was at a rooftop club in LA that was alive with music, lights, and laughter. Beautiful women danced across the floor. The city sparkled around them. And in the middle of all this was Dae Hyun lounging like he owned the place. One woman handed him a drink. Another invited him to dance. He politely waved them off. A few women danced in front of him. Then he finally answered, Joo-Won, I'm auditioning. Joo-Won blinked, auditioning. Dae Hyun nodded seriously, for my future Mrs. Dae Hyun. Joo-Won rubbed his temples. I've been married for less than a day and you're already stressing me out. Dae Hyun laughed. So, how married life? Joo-Won looked over at Mee-Mee. She was pretending not to listen, and failing miserably. He smiled. It's perfect. For once, Dae Hyun's teasing disappeared. Good. A genuine moment passed between the two friends. I'm happy for you, brother. Joo-Won's smile grew. I know. Then naturally, Dae Hyun couldn't help himself. So, a grin spread across his face. Are you about to? Mee-Mee's eyes widened. She immediately mouthed, don't answer him. Joo-Won laughed. I need to get to my wife. Call me in about 3 days. Mee-Mee yelled from the background, make that a week or 2. Joo-Won laughed, later, bro, and hung up. Mee-Mee laughed so hard she had tears in her eyes. What's wrong with your boy? He's impossible. Joo-Won slipped the phone into his pocket. I know, then chuckled. Dae Hyun is my day one ever since we were teens, ever since he body rolled at our Pt5 audition. Mee-Mee laughed at first but then nodded with understanding. Joo-Won looked toward the ocean. I love him anyway. Back in LA, the music kept playing. The women kept dancing. The party continued around Dae Hyun. Someone pulled him toward the dance floor. He politely declined. But as the night went on, his smile faded just a little. Across the room, he noticed an older couple dancing. The husband gently placed a hand on his wife's back, then quietly kissed her forehead. No cameras, just love. The kind that didn't need anyone watching. Dae Hyun watched a little longer than he expected. Then he looked away. Because for the first time all night, the room felt a little less crowded. And he felt a little more alone. Then his phone buzzed. Tae Kim, Dae Hyun answered. You checking up on me? I am. I'm fine. I didn't ask, Dae Hyun laughed, but Tae Kim continued. You've spent years trying to find the prettiest woman in every room. A beat. Maybe look for the kindest one instead. Then Tae did what Tae did best. He sang a little song for his maknae because Dae Hyun was indeed the youngest in the group.
Open the door, let her walk in first. Pull out the chair, make the small things work. Hear her out when the day got rough. Don't fix too fast, just listen enough. Hold her hand in the crowded room. Show her you're there without a big speech too soon. If you want respect, give respect back. If you want a heart, treat it like that. Be kind, be nice, be gentle. Be kind, be nice, be gentle. Hold her close with care, like you meant to get there. Be kind.
For once, Dae Hyun had no joke, no comeback, no clever response. He just stood there and let the words sink in. I'll think about it. Tae Kim smiled. I know you will. And that was when everything started changing. Not all at once, not dramatically, just a small thought, a tiny question, a seed planted. And for the first time, he wondered if maybe he was ready for something real. Then he immediately shook his head. Absolutely not. That's crazy talk. But once a seed had been planted, it was pretty hard not to notice it growing. Back in the Maldives, Joo-Won showered first. Quick, distracted. His mind was already somewhere else, replaying the chaos of the day, wondering if Mee-Mee had eaten enough, if she'd actually sat down for 5 minutes, if anyone had remembered that the bride was a person and not just the center of a wedding. By the time he came back out, he was arranging sliced tropical fruit on a tray like it was still his job to make sure every detail around her felt perfect. In the bathroom, Mee-Mee sank into a hot, bubbling bath and finally let the last 2 weeks release their grip. The pressure, the headlines, the rumors, the fear that something would go wrong. Steam curled around her as candlelight danced across the water. No one was calling her name. No one needed anything from her, just stillness. She slowly stood, droplets sliding down her brown skin, bubbles clinging for just a moment before melting back into the bath. And that was the exact moment Joo-Won walked in. He froze. A glass of water rested in his hand. He stopped. For a man who had performed before millions, who had stood beneath thousands of lights. Somehow this was the moment that left him speechless. I'm sorry, he said with a nervous smile. I didn't know you were still taking a bath, but he couldn't look away. Not from her, not from his wife. His voice softened. You're so damn beautiful. Mee-Mee laughed quietly, suddenly shy in a way she almost never allowed herself to be. You were supposed to see me in that little nighty Melbot first, she teased as she carefully stepped out of the bath. Joo-Won finally exhaled as though he'd been holding his breath since the moment he'd watched her walk down the aisle. I hate that she wasted her money. Mee-Mee lifted an eyebrow. Because... A slow smile spread across his face. Because this, his eyes never left hers, is my favorite outfit. She tilted her head, the teasing spark returning to her eyes. Then come over here and show me how much you like it. And that was all it took. He smiled, bit his lower lip, set the glass down, quietly closed the door, then walked towards her. And for the first time in weeks, the rest of the world could wait. Because sometimes the greatest miracle isn't that everything goes according to plan. It's discovering that when everything falls apart, love keeps showing up anyway. Katrina learned that attention isn't the same thing as significance. The fans learned that devotion can build something beautiful instead of tearing something down. And Joo-Won and Mee-Mee learned that the best weddings aren't perfect. They're simply filled with the right people. Thank you for spending this time with us. Before we go to everyone who asked for a way to listen to the music from Old Towne, say less. It's finally here. Joo-Won's Part 1 album, featuring fan favorites from Mee-Mee and Pt5, is now streaming on Spotify, Apple Music, and other major music platforms. This first collection includes a mix of songs from episode 7 through the honeymoon story you've just experienced. You'll find links and more information in the description below. And don't worry, parts 2 and 3 are already on the way. If you're just discovering Old Towne, now is the perfect time to start from the beginning. Every episode builds on the last, and we hope each one leaves your heart just a little fuller than before. For even more behind-the-scenes fun, join us on Patreon, where you'll get exclusive content, early surprises, and the chance to vote in community polls, including helping us decide which couple might be next to become parents. We're building something truly special here, and we're incredibly grateful you're taking this journey with us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and tell us what you thought in the comments. Seriously, we absolutely love reading your comments. Be sure to check the description below for music links, Patreon, and all the other ways to stay connected with us. Until next time, we'll see you back in Old Towne. And from all of us to all of you, have a merry everything.
Baby, lace me in your smile. All eyes on you tonight. Your hand in mine, my heart beat loud. You glow in that white dress light. I see that ribbon on your thigh, wrapped up like a secret prize. The room goes still when you look down, and I can't help but step in closer. Lift that leg up high, let them all watch us now. You blush and bite that lip, girl, we make this crowd go wild. Let me take it off. Let me take it off. Slow, nice and soft. Let me take it off. Let me take it off. Let me take it off. One sweet little job, then I toss it to the boys. I catch your laugh when I lean in. Your cheeks go rosy red. Your mama gaps, your cousins cheering. You're hiding in your veil. I pull it loose with my teeth, just like they came to see. You shake your head, you grab my shirt, and the whole room starts to scream. Lift that leg up high, let them all watch us now. You blush and bite that lip, girl, we make this crowd go wild. Take it off, yeah. Let me take it off. Slow, nice and soft, yeah. Let me take it off. 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 One sweet little job, then I toss it to the boys. Single man in the back, come on, hands up, don't be shy. Whoever catches her little charm gets luck on this side tonight. You laugh, I kiss your hand, then let that ribbon fly. One more cheer from the family as you lean into my side. Take it off, slow, nice and soft. Let me to the boys.